Hey, property management friends. Welcome to This Week in PM. I'm your host, Jeremy Pound from Rent Scale. Hope you had a great holiday season and a happy new year. We're finally rested up from our big sales mastery event in December. And of course, just when we finally got our head above water, Jen and I decided to go to another workshop to learn what we can do in 2025 to grow both our business and your business. And we cannot wait to tell you about that today. So we came away with some great takeaways. Now we're going to share our top takeaways from the Alex and Leila Hormozi Scale Workshop that we both went to in Las Vegas about 2 weeks ago. But while we wait for other friends to join us live, let's look at a highlight from a previous episode.
Tell us about the conference. You were there. What were your highlights? What did you take away?
My highlights are probably a little bit higher level than most. It's an exciting time for us. And like I said, it's really us for there as board members to just be there for our members. And though there is a committee that plans it, they did an outstanding job with the lineup. We've had nothing but good feedback about content provided, whether it was in note sessions or breakouts, and a wide variety that really appealed to the 240 some new first timers we had in Dallas to the people that have been going for 20 years. I got to hand out some amazing awards to people in NARPM that are so deserving of all their recognition and their hard work. We got to honor members that have been in NARPM for 25, 30, and I believe 35 years, an amazing testament to what King provides. And as always, there was such strong networking and bonding, whether it be with new affiliates or reconnecting with clients, and again, finding ways to make our industry better together.
So be sure that you're subscribed to Strategic PM on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, or X so that you can watch these industry episodes live and be the first to hear what's new and trending. Okay, as I mentioned before, we're still running a high from our Sales Mastery Live event in Austin last month. We had over 80 property managers come out and join us for what we think is the premier event in growing your property management company. And at the end of all of this work, we had 50 feedback surveys that were actually turned in. We did the old-fashioned hard copy feedback surveys. We asked everybody to rate every session and what they thought about the event. And I'm happy to share with you that every one of our sessions was rated at least an 8 or above. We're still hearing great things from our Scale Club community and our clients about what they're planning to put into action. And I'll be honest with you, this event is a lot of work, but I think we'll do it at least one more time. And so in case you missed it, let's share some scenes from Austin, Texas. All right, that was just a sneak peek, and wow, was that a fun event. Thanks to all of our Scale Club members who came out and shared what's working for them and being part of the sessions. And shout out to Jen, our guest today, for planning such an amazing event and putting it together. And yes, you did see confetti cannons in that video, and we hope to bring those back at an event in the future. We had a great time, and maybe in the next 2 months, we might take some of the highest rated sessions and turn them into webinars. So be on the lookout for that. Follow us at Rent Scale on social media, anywhere that you follow, or reach out to us and we'll let you know when we have those up. I think we're going to do it again. It was a lot of stress. I think Jen may have quit on me 3 times because there was so much work to do to put this whole thing together. But we do it for you guys, and we do it so that you guys go home with a ton of ideas and motivation and community shares from each other, and you make the next year the best thing possible. And speaking of Jen, let's bring her on and share what we learned in Vegas. But first, a quick word from one of our sponsors.
Hi there. Did you know that RentScale hosts one of the largest communities of property management sales professionals in North America? Well, my name is Reese Register, and I'm actually a previous BDM and currently a scale coach here at RentScale. We provide over 20 hours monthly of teaching and training and accountability to make sure that our BDMs are supercharging their sales business through inbound outbound, and all bound. So if you're interested in learning more about supercharging your business, go over to rentscale.com. We'll be glad to schedule a consult and see how we can help you transform your business today.
All right, I'm so excited to share some of the things that we learned with you in Vegas. I'm going to invite my COO and business partner, Jen, on to talk to us about what we experienced in Vegas. We went to the Alex and Leila Hormozi event, which is basically branded under acquisitions.com. And they have a scaling workshop where they're basically sharing what the fastest growing companies are doing in America. And it was an amazing event. I'll be honest with you. For Jen and I to go, just for the tickets, we spent $10,000 to go to this event, on top of everything that we spent to be out there, to take time in December away from our families and from work. And we felt like this was something that we could really learn a lot of things that we wanted to share with you. So I want to bring Jen on and talk about what we learned at this event. So Jen, welcome. Happy New Year.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So excited to talk about this. We had such a great event, and I mean, so many things for rent scale, but also I kept thinking as we're sitting through this, the PM industry needs these things. So I can't wait to bring them.
All right, so let me get your hot take, your like initial feedback. How'd you feel about the event? How would you describe this to somebody who has no idea what we went to?
So the event is 100% workshop based, which was a lot of fun because it was very in the weeds. It wasn't just sitting and looking and listening. There was a lot of hands-on experience and learning. But I was very impressed with just how the event was run. Some of the different small things, the sales processes throughout, as sales geeks, you and I totally geeked out on everything that they did. But it was so worth our while because not only did we get to meet Alex and Leila, which was awesome, and hear from them and hear them coach other businesses, but we got to hear from their entire team what's worked really well from them. We got to sit down and meet with them, and we got to talk to other business owners. It was just fantastic overall, hands-on workshop and networking event.
Great. And you want to share with them the paperwork that you came back with?
Oh my gosh, we came out along with 12 pages of notes in a 2-day event. We had a cool workbook, and this workbook is filled with some amazing information and just different stuff that we're certainly implementing here at RentScale, and I'm sure we'll actually implement some of it in our coaching for clients as well. I don't even know how many pages this thing is, but it's a thick Bible full of all sorts of good resources.
Yeah, I was sitting right next to you and we were taking tons of notes. What we're going to share with you guys today is just absolutely the tip of the iceberg of what we took away. We really tried to sit back and say, hey, what are the, kind of 3 biggest impact things that we learned from this conference? And that's what we want to go to from today. But I would encourage you to go there and actually ask the producer to drop a link to this workshop in the chat so you guys can sign up if you want. I believe they do 6 of these a year. We thought it was fantastic. Tons of great businesses were there from, all stripes of life, which is really cool. And I want to really solidify that for you guys. Like, we're going to go through 3 things that we really want you to take away from this, but it is just the tip of the iceberg. We learned so much that we couldn't possibly share with you. So if you do come to future sales masteries, if you do sign up with RentScale, you're going to be getting a lot of the lessons that we learned from this event. So let's jump in. I invited Jen in to talk about kind of the 3 biggest lessons that we learned. And we'll start with number 1. The first thing that they talked about right from the beginning is that if you want to scale your company, again, this was called a scale workshop, is that you need to fix the primary constraint in your business. Simple concept, but really important. So what is the primary constraint? The primary constraint is the bottleneck in your business, right? It's that thing that's holding you back. So there's always one primary constraint that's the largest problem that's limiting your company's growth. The easiest parallel is to think about an assembly line in a factory, right? If you can create, 50 cars a day, but you can only install 4 headlights a day, well, that's your biggest constraint. It doesn't matter if you can go from 50 to 100 cars a day. If you can only install 4 headlights a day, you're not going to have more than 4 cars roll off the assembly line. So it's very simple to say, but it's super important. So investing in anything other than the primary constraint in your business is just going to bring diminished returns. We all know that it's super sexy to invest in our systems and our loyalty programs. Let's talk about reducing churn. Let's talk about doing X, Y, or Z. But unless you've really done the hard work to understand what the biggest constraint in your business is, then you just basically are limiting the downside of all of the work that you do. And so they really harped on this and they showed that. And in fact, when they invest in companies, which is why they bring all of us out there so that they can build a portfolio of small businesses that they want to invest in that are scaling quickly, they have almost 100% focus on the biggest constraint. So Jen, I just want to ask you to share what you learned from this, what you think our constraint might be, what you think our client's constraint might be. Like, how do you add some color to what we're talking about?
Yeah, so the primary constraint for rent scale, just in a very vulnerable way, is getting enough clients into the top of the funnel that we can talk to. That is our biggest constraint. I think that there are so many opportunities out there, but it's finding the right fit clients that are going to need what we supply and where it's really actually going to add value to their business. Because we don't have a lack of property managers to talk to, but the property managers who want to grow and the property managers who are ready to take on this challenge to make their business bigger, certainly probably a constraint for us. And I know one that we'll be focusing on. But as I sat through this, I really spent a lot of time thinking about our clients as well and what their constraint is and what I hear when I'm on blueprint calls and I'm setting these systems up. You know, I think that so many times property managers look at their number one constraint as the churn out the bottom of the bucket. And while that is certainly a constraint, I want people to really think about, is it actually their primary constraint? It's a constraint. We have a lot of constraints here at Rent Scale, but it's about focusing on the thing that's actually going to help fix your business and help it grow. And while I want to plug the bottom of that boat, and I think for some property management companies that is the primary constraint, for so many that I talk to, I think that they're missing what goes into the top. And a lot of property managers want to fix all of the systems, make everything workflow perfectly as a new client goes through their property management experience. But I think we all know that it's almost impossible to make that happen because there will always be fires and we need to be prepared, but that's not the constraint stopping property management companies from growing. Typically what we see in most markets is that the biggest constraint is, how do I acquire more of my ideal client? And again, I emphasize ideal client because it's really easy to just put a bunch of people in that don't work well just looking for property management. But putting the right client in to the top of your funnel, to me, should be the primary constraint that I'm seeing property management companies struggle the hardest with. After that, then I'm thinking it's probably the churn issue for a lot of people. Although I do see people solving that one and kind of figuring out how to reduce churn and keep people for longer. I think as we went to this workshop though, there's so many things that you can identify. If you look at all of the value adders that they talked about, growth percentage and EBITDA and lifetime value and customer acquisition costs, these are all possible constraints in a business. And this is what annual planning is for. You sit down and you really think about what is stopping you from growing, because it can be so many number of things that Jeremy, you and I can't list off today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing. Seems so simple, guys. You say, hey, we spent all this money and we flew out and we listened to people tell us you should be solving your biggest problems. It's pretty easy to have an eye roll around that, but they really gave us examples and they really helped us understand how many businesses are just focusing on distractions or trivial problems. And so that's why we're spending time on this, because I think we got religion while we were out there. I know I did. And they really talked about that. They said, not only do you need to find the right problem to work on as the CEO or the person focused on growing the business, right? Because again, there's a lot of problems to solve to work on the day-to-day and just run the business, but it takes somebody focused to actually grow the business, not be in the day-to-day, very cliche, work on the business instead of in the business. And that's what they were really focused on. They said, you are here today to become the kind of person who can grow your business. And if we go back to the graphic, George, that you popped up, they really brought out that it wasn't just that you had to find the right problem to solve, you also had to find the right solution to that problem. So basically, again, Captain Obvious, I totally get that. But the best use of the person's time who's growing the business is focusing on the right problem and solving it the right way. That is the key to growing your business. And so that's why in the property management industry, we have all of these amazing vendors and we talk to our partners because they've already solved that problem before, which is amazing. And so if you can find the right problem to solve and you can find the right way to focus it, spoiler alert, your company will grow. And you need to fix every bottleneck one by one and continue to work on the next one. And that's honestly, when you have your CEO hat, that's all you should be focused on. You should hey, it would be a great idea, if we created a referral program. But if that's not the biggest constraint in your company, then that should not be what you focus on next. And they really drove that home over and over again. And I think when you get honest with yourself about, what your primary constraint is, they made a really good point. If this is really the biggest bottleneck in your business, there is no expense or amount of resources that should be too much to solve that problem, because the cost of not solving that constraint is always more expensive than whatever investments required to solve it. And they basically made a really sober statement that I love. And they said, if solving the biggest constraint in your business is more expensive than the value, if the juice is worth more than the squeeze, you are in the wrong business, my friend. That's basically what they said over and over again. If you can really find the biggest constraint in your business and it's not worth investing in, that should be a giant red flag in the value of your business. So I just thought that was absolutely fantastic. And they talked about that over and over again. So bottom lines were that in business, to grow, you have to find the constraint. So Jen, I just love to kind of hear, your commentary. We've already shared a ton of stuff vulnerably about while we were at the event, we're working on our business and we're going to dinner after every day of the event. And we're like, oh, we got this. And maybe we're working this the wrong way. What were some of your final takeaways about these constraints and how we should be thinking differently about solving them?
Well, I think that property managers or property management company owners, I would challenge you guys to really sit down and be honest about what your constraint is. I think when we go to these conferences, we see all of these different things that we could implement in our business. And I think that these things are all fantastic. However, I want you to really ask yourself, what's stopping you from moving forward? And I want you to think outside of the box. Think even away from the things that you hear at the conference. Some things that I would challenge all of our listeners to really think through when it comes to their business is, what is the lifetime value of your client? What is your customer acquisition cost? Are you having a harder time converting business that you already have, or are you having a harder time putting business into the top of your funnel? Think about, are they coming out the bottom of your funnel? Are people leaving because they don't have a good enough client experience all throughout your process? I think it's so easy for property management companies, because typically the owners are very operationally minded and like getting in those weeds, to identify their primary constraints, again, as an operations problem. And what I might ask you is, and maybe this is true for you, but is that standard operating procedure that you need to write down on paper what's stopping you from growing your business? Is that it? Is it the maintenance solution that you need to put in place because it's a disaster and you can't grow your business? Or is it, I don't have enough clients coming into the funnel. If I put more people in the top, I would be able to have more to refine these things. And I just want people to step outside of what they hear all of the time and what's common to talk about in property management and actually think about what's stopping your business from growth. The other thing I would ask, do you want to grow? What's your goal? Because, we also talked at acquisition.com about you can have a big business, say $10 million a year that makes 10%, or maybe you have a smaller business that's maybe $5 million a year, but makes 30%. So sit down and get very, very real about your goals with your company, because that's going to help you identify that primary constraint a little better. That's something we did here at RentScale, is like, what does the future look like? What do we want it to look like? And that really helped make that primary constraint pretty clear for us.
Solid shares, Jen. I appreciate that. We, as you can tell, really dove in and kind of refocused on what are the questions we're asking ourselves and what are the things we're telling ourselves and where are we wrong. And so, not that we have it all figured out yet, but you can see we just constantly kept looking at that. All right, so that was takeaway number one. I loved it. It was how they opened up the conference. I got so much value out of that. I made tons of notes around it. And I myself, as the person responsible for finding the ways to explode the bottlenecks and reduce the constraints and grow RentScale, I was very much reminded that there's a lot of things I can focus on that are just not important. And the talent of the CEO, basically the production of the CEO, how we're judged is, are you moving the needle forward? And I thought that was just a fantastic, overly simplistic way to just look and question everything you're doing so that we avoid that shiny object syndrome, as Jen talked about, because we all have that for sure. I'm definitely guilty of it. So, all right. So that's how we can increase the value of our company. What was great is that the acquisition.com model is to help business owners keep a scoreboard of their business by the value of the business. So how do you value your business if you're growing? They really want to have a clear scoreboard, and they want to create a consistent language across all of their companies, just like we have the NARPM accounting standards, and just like we have the scoreboard at RentScale, and just as Lead Simple talks about all of the consistent metrics that they want to share. And the CRM, they want to make sure that all of us business owners that are running in a million different industries at different speeds, we all have a way to keep score. So they introduced their scorecard, which was amazing. And so we started out the day by valuing our business. And so we talked about all the normal things that you're used to, like how much revenue do you make? How much profit do you keep? Your EBITDA. And then they said, okay, if we were to invest in your business, or a private equity firm was going to invest in your business, or some third party was going to buy your business, they basically sobered us all up really fast by letting us know that our business is worth way more to us than it is to other people. And they showed us all the reasons why somebody from the outside may not value the business as much as we do. And so that was takeaway number two. It's our value reducers, which I thought was great. We all know this, like inherently, we know that if, the business owner does all the work themselves, somebody is not going to invest in you, right? That's an example of a value reducer. What was great is that they've really boiled it down to 5 value reducers that are all fixable. And as you scale your company, then you can basically check off one by one. And they said, if you're a brand new company, you're going to be a super risky investment. All 5 of these should and will be value reducers of your company. And that's totally fine. But as you go through the journey of the entrepreneur and you grow your company, you're going to check them off one by one. And you're going to make sure that even if you never want to sell your business, which is something they talked about over and over again, is we're not encouraging you to sell your business. We're just encouraging you to make your business sellable. Because the more sellable your business is, the more valuable it is going to be to you as an owner. And that just is equity. So when you think about real estate, which is what we all talk about all the time, if a piece of property is more valuable and more people bid on it, then it's going to be more valuable to you. And so why should your business not look at that? And so private equity firms and investors and everybody that would ever talk about buying a business from you are going to basically look for black holes or hidden risks. And what we loved about this workshop is that they labeled them for us. And they showed us how to know how much risk you have. They created a scorecard. And they showed us how to fix those overall as you go through. So Jen, you see them on the screen. We can go back and forth. What were the key risks that you took away? Maybe don't even go in order. What were the risks that you saw that you're like, wow, I never really realized that was a label or a risk that I should focus on? What do you want to talk about that you think that we or our clients are most vulnerable in?
Well, I think intuitively we all know these risks exist. So as you go through these, you sit there and you go, well, I know that this exists. But I do think that as we go through, there are some that are more important or attractive to certain businesses as they think through these big risks. I think most property management companies and even most small businesses are they're very likely to succumb to the key man risk because there's only a small number of employees in these businesses. And usually there's somebody who's the glue that's kind of keeping it all together. So whether you're talking rent scale, whether you're talking a PM company, I do think the key man risk is one of the first things that we need to just look at and we need to address. And the key man risk really says that the business is really dependent on that glue that's holding everybody together. If that glue left, the business would fall off or something would happen. And a lot of the times this is the owner, the founder, or somebody who's running the company. In property management, sometimes I think of this as the main operator or the person that's keeping all of the trains on the tracks, right? And what happens if they leave? Does everybody else know how to do their job without them? So that's probably one that I think that our particular audience really needs to pay attention to. Then there was market risk, and market risk is really about, is the business serving a market that's shrinking or using technology that's making it become obsolete? And when I first thought about market risk, I was like, we don't have any market risk. We're in a prime market for this. Things in the US keep getting more and more expensive. Homes in the US keep getting more and more expensive to buy. And so more and more people are going to need to rent. And with more people renting, there's going to be more people needing property management. There's more regulation and less people are able to self-manage. But then I paused and I actually thought about something. There's a lot of software out there that is starting to become a disruptor in this industry. TurboTenant is one of them. There's many of them, but that's just one. And they are continuing to acquire companies that allow self-management to be easier and easier and easier. And so for me, while I sit there and I go, my market's not declining, property industry, if nothing else, is on the rise. Like, we have a very bright future. There is a little bit of market risk in the technology side of things because I do see certain things property managers do becoming obsolete if we don't figure out how to add value beyond the day-to-day activities of property management, like collecting rent or screening tenants. There's technologies out there making this very, very easy and making the regulations something that are not even a factor for self-management. So I think there's some market risk there that we're all kind of ignoring or putting blinders onto. And I'd like us to remove the blinders and think about how we compete with that technology. And then the other one that I think we really need to pay attention to here is the data risk. Data risk is really important because, especially if you want your company to be bought, they need to see what is happening, right? You have to have data that they can look at, that they can address. And I think so many property management companies that I sit down and talk with don't have any idea what any of their data is. So a healthy business should be able to reliably produce reports from one system that everybody can trust. And I don't know that that's the case for a lot of property management companies. So, I really think that we need to start putting more into creating data, because not only will that help our companies sell for more, if that's our goal, it's actually going to help us run a smarter business. One thing they said that I think was so valuable was every meeting that you have at your company should start with numbers. It should start with data. There should be something up at the front end, new customers that you've acquired, customers that you lost, number of maintenance occurrences that you had for that week, how many were handled, how many were still open. I really think that that's an important piece of every meeting, instead of focusing on how we feel. And rent scale was not immune to this at all. I would say up until last year, meetings often started with, how do we feel? How do we think clients are receiving what we're doing? And we've gotten away from that. And I'm really proud to say that I thought about our meetings, Jeremy, and I thought about what we start or how we start out. All of them have some sort of numbers at the very beginning where we're looking at what's happening in the business. So I want to encourage all the property managers out there to look at that, because I felt like those three for me were some of the biggest. Key customer risk, also another good, they're all good, Jeremy. Key customer risk is, do you have a whale that's going to take you down? And there's so many of our clients who want to chase after investors. And I'm like, okay, let's chase after investors. But if we put too many of our eggs in that one basket, we're going to be very susceptible to, when they're ready to leave or do something different, whether you did something wrong or not, sell the portfolio, 1031 it into short-term rentals, like who knows, right? But is our business going to crumble? And so you need to look at how many whales you have, how many minnows you have, what's the risk. That's the term that they gave at acquisition.com, is whales and minnows. And what's the risk that your business has? Because I see more and more property managers wanting more and more investors. And I'm like, that's fine, but you need 10 big investors, not one investor and some minnows. So those were my biggest ones.
Let me double click on the data risk, if you don't mind, because I thought that was great. And we talked a lot about that. Data risk, like you and I totally get it. And I think a lot of listeners might be like, well, what does data risk mean? Because it's a fairly obvious in hindsight concept, but it's also very sophisticated when you see it kind of going in. And so they talked a lot about lifetime customer value, right? Huge value, like our friends at Profit Coach would be so happy to hear this. And by the way, they did reach out and they're like, hey, we might go to this workshop as well. And I was like, you definitely should. You're going to love it. And they talked a lot about these numbers that Profit Coach has helped the industry come up with. And they were focused on several numbers, like a lifetime customer value. What is that customer worth to you? And then how do you divide that by CAC, which is a weird, terrible sounding word, but basically means, cost or client acquisition cost, right? How much does it cost you to acquire a customer? How much does it, how much money do you make from that customer that you acquired? And if it's costing you, $50,000 to acquire a customer, but they make you $4 million over the next 3 years, people will make that bet all day long, right? So it's like the ratio is why I use those big numbers, right? If it costs you $1 to acquire the customer, but they only make you $4, still worth it. You'll put in that dollar all day long. So they talked about those ratios a lot, which I thought was fantastic. They also just kind of talked about this idea that, if I'm investing in your business and I ask you a question and you're like, I don't know how to answer that. Like, I don't know, like how much it costs me to acquire a customer. I don't know how long customers stay here. I don't know what the renewal rate is. Investors get very, very concerned. And I thought that was great. And we took that away and like, okay, listen, we're close to it. Jen and I are running this business. We're like, we know it's a good business. But if somebody from the outside was like, I have a very specific question, we were like, oh, I don't know if we would answer that. Like, how many dollars that come in 2024, how many customers are coming in 2024 are still spending money with you in 2025? They asked these amazing questions. And so I think it was just great. We were looking at each other, we're writing it down. So I'm thinking from a rent scale standpoint, because that's my job. But Jen, you're talking to our clients all the time. We're setting them up. We know a lot of them don't know their numbers. What is there like 2 or 3 numbers that you just feel like if you're watching this right now and you don't know this number in your business, you really need to figure it out? Like, where do you recommend that our clients start?
Well, I mean, I think some of the good numbers that I would pull and make sure that I was aware of are lifetime value of a client. What does that look like? And also, what are you doing to extend that? So you don't just get the data together, but then you figure out how to make it less of a risk, right? So lifetime value of a client. I think customer acquisition cost is awesome too, because it's going to help make decisions on whether you should or should not do something. So if it's, hey, customer acquisition cost right now is sitting at $795 per customer. And I want to go out and I want to invest money in A, B, and C, but it's going to end up costing me more, I think, estimated than the $795, then you probably shouldn't do it. So it'll help make more black and white decisions and less feelings-based decisions. We put this in place here at RentScale when it came to sponsorships, right? We put this together and we're like, hey, if it doesn't do X, Y, or Z, we've decided that it's not a good fit for us to sponsor. And so I want you guys to think about those two things for sure. But I really also think that it would be awesome if everybody knew what their eviction rate was, which seems silly, but those are things that matter to your clients. So I'd get really clear on that. And then your churn, because I do believe that if you can't just keep putting stuff into the top if you're losing it out the bottom. And it doesn't make sense to continue putting it in the top if you're losing it out the bottom. You need to plug that hole. So your churn numbers are going to be really important. The only other one that I know every business should be paying attention to this, and I say that, but I know every business is not paying attention to this, is your EBITDA. I mean, everybody needs to know what that looks like. You need to know what you're aiming for, and those are numbers that I would absolutely make sure to pay attention to in any property management business to make sure you're headed in the right direction. So I think that it's going to help you make decisions on whether you need to put in a certain cost or fee or pricing increase for your customers, or if you just feel like the industry is pushing you that way. Does it make sense? But those are some key numbers that I would pay attention to in the business.
Those are great. Thanks, Jen. And I think we find this all the time. We talk to our clients and we ask these questions because we want to help them make better decisions. And they're just like, oh, I don't have those numbers. So get those numbers, invest in the technology, talk to Profit Coach, get your Lead Simple system set up, work with RentScale. This is what we do. Help you guys make clear decisions based on numbers. Okay. So takeaway number 2. Let's move on to takeaway number 3. And this was really awesome and something that I've been working since I got back to implement. RentScale's been in business almost 6 years. In February will be our 6-year anniversary. And we've worked with over 500 clients. We've hired hundreds of BDMs. And what we took away from this conference was using proof. So you don't want to try to convince somebody that you can do something. You want to convince your clients that you've done something over and over again. And this is the value that you accrue, the momentum that you accrue when you have a business that's been in business for years. This is why it's so hard to start a business from scratch, because you basically have no credibility, you have no track record. But once you've been in business for a while and you've been doing great things, you should just be talking about what you've done. And so while this was a very valuable paid for workshop that they asked us at the end, part of their Net Promoter Score survey was how much business or how much value do you think you got out of this? Like how much revenue do you think you'll add to your business based on coming to this workshop? And Jen and I wrote down very large numbers. We were very excited about it, which was amazing. And the whole point was that they walked us through all of these case studies and they show us over and over again, this company worked with us, they did this, they got this, right? They just indoctrinated us from the minute we walked in the door that everything they touch turns into success. Now that may not be always the case, but we definitely left feeling that way. So they just used testimonials and case studies and they literally created overwhelming proof. So as they were offering us to do new things, to move further into their ecosphere, to hire them to become more of a integrated company in their portfolio, or to even have investment, they basically never asked you to take the next step without first showing you 7, 8, or 9 case studies on how much value they added, which was crazy. In fact, I'll be honest with you, as we're sitting there and Alex Hormozi is on stage, who got a total business crush on, I couldn't wait to see. And we went there to see him. As he talked about what they do, he would not just give 2 or 3 case studies. He would be into case study 7, 8, 9, 11. And I'm almost like, okay, I'm bored. Like, I'm almost bored because this guy is so good at what they do. Like, everybody that they're working with is making so much money. I don't need to keep hearing these success stories. And then when they basically make an offer to you, we realize we're like, you have no argument to walk into this meeting or talk to these people and say, I don't know if what you do works for me. Because what they did was they talked about how they can help big companies, and then they talked about how they can help small companies, and then they talked about how they can help medium companies. You could never say, I'm not really sure if I can trust this, because they showed you, success story after success story. And it was fantastic. And these were great stories. And they brought us there, and they were simultaneously teaching us how to grow our business and showing us that this works. Because as you know, if information was the problem, you probably heard me say this on stage before, and I did not make this up. If information was the only thing holding us back from our goals, we'd all have six-pack abs and billion-dollar bank accounts, because you can learn everything you want online to get both of those things. But the actual follow through on those things, we all know is the thing that we really need help with. So we were blown away. Again, I'm not mad at all that they were selling us new things, and they were trying to, in fact, we're a little honored. Like, they reached out to Jen and I, and they invited us in to talk, said, we want to help you and we might want to invest in your company. We didn't ultimately do that, but we never felt bad that they were selling us more things, because they were giving us so much value. But as they gave us value, they just showed us proof after proof after proof. And I think that is just like one of the assets that we undervalue in our company is the success that we've already delivered to our clients, right? This is why companies that have been around for 100 years and brands that we've all used, they have momentum. They have the success that they've basically created. And now it's like, nobody gets hot. Nobody back in the, 15 years ago, saying was nobody gets fired for hiring IBM. Now it's been replaced because IBM's not as good as they used to be, which is a lesson in its own right. Nobody gets fired for hiring Deloitte. Like, everybody wants to work with the industry leader, the person who shows that they can do it over and over again. And so they just did this at a masterclass level. So Jen, I'm curious what you took away. I know I brought this up. This was like my takeaway. That maybe you were seeing it, but I remember telling you, I'm like, did you see how much proof they gave? I was like so excited about it, like my sales hat on. How can we be using this, and how can our clients use this?
Yeah, I mean, it was all over the place. But the funny thing is, like, it didn't hit you in the face, but it hit you in the face all at the same time. They sold to us the entire time, but as you said, we weren't mad about the fact that they were selling to us, because it was exciting, because it was like, dang, how did they help achieve that goal? What did they do differently? And I think we can leverage this and use that in RentScale, and certainly in property management company businesses. Here at RentScale, anyone that's familiar with us knows that we've got testimonials and different things on YouTube, and we've got clients who are constantly shouting us out in different ways and giving testimonials even without being asked. But we could 100x this and share all of the different success stories. I know here at RentScale, one of the things that I want to be more clear about is putting numbers to what we've helped clients do, because we can show how happy people walk away. We can show the experience that they had with us, but we are lacking data when it comes to our testimonials. So from a transparent standpoint, hey guys, you now know what RentScale is going to do in 2025, and you'll see more of it. But for property managers, I'd ask you guys, how many of you have video testimonials and solid testimonials that you're ready to share on social, maybe even as an ad? I'm going to guess that it's somewhere between 5 and 10% of you. And yes, we all have testimonials from Google that we pull off and quote and put on our websites. That is not what I'm talking about. I am talking about hard data-driven testimonials that's like, I helped client X do Y. And so they kind of gave a framework when we were at acquisition.com, which I think was very helpful. So I'll share it here today. The framework is that we're going to start with the pain. So for example, let's just say that you have a self-managing landlord and they've been doing it for 5 years. And the pain is that suddenly they've taken a big step up in their job and they no longer have the time to juggle all the different things in their life. Okay. So the pain is my tenant called me and the microwave's not working and I have to get out there to fix it, but I have a day stacked full of meetings and my kids are, by the way, you guys, this is a true story. My kids are out there and it's winter break and they're screaming their heads off and too many things, right? Okay. So that's the pain. The second piece is let the customer then share their skepticism. So I, self-managing landlord, am skeptical that it's going to be worth the cost of the monthly management for my rental. I don't want to let go of control, and I'm fearful that I'm going to end up managing my manager. Okay. Then they get on and they outline how great the reality actually was. So I was afraid of all those things. I turned it over to this property manager anyways, because I knew I had to do something different. And here's what actually happened. I didn't actually have to let go of any control because they still let me know everything that was going on with my property. Yes, property management cost me an extra X number of dollars a month, but they also helped save me because I'm no longer paying giant markups with my maintenance guys that I call on a whim every once in a while. So the next step is to let the customer share their skepticism and then the actual reality of coming on board with you. And I think that most case studies leave out the pain and the skepticism, and they're only focusing on all of the bright things and the shiny things that were done and the great things that the property management company did. But let them share their fears and let them talk about how it did or didn't work and what they were really terrified of. And most of the time, just that right there is enough. But I want to encourage you guys to try and figure out how to incorporate numbers. Last time the self-managing landlord leased out their own home, they did it in 45 days. We leased it out in 20. Whatever that is or whatever it looks like, show them overwhelming proof in that data and make it really apparent. That's what I think is super important in all of these testimonials and case studies.
Yeah, it was amazing. We just got data after data after data and stories and numbers, and they were a master in it. So if you do go to acquisition.com for one of these workshops, which I encourage you to do, so I dropped the note in there. We're not getting anything for that. There's no affiliate, but pay attention to how they talk about what they do and how they don't just describe what they do. And that's something that we fall into as business owners. It's so easy to describe all of the work we're going to do as property managers. We even fall into that rent scale. Like, we do so much for what we get paid to do, but people don't care about what you're doing. They care about what they're getting from what you're doing. And so I just thought that was absolutely amazing how they did that. All right, Jen, I know we said we're going to do 3 things, but is there any bonus or anything that you want to share that you took away from this conference?
So I really had a huge takeaway that I wrote down and circled many times in my notebook, because I think that this is, I don't know, it just hit me so different. And I think you had a takeaway as well, and I think they're actually different, but mine was the top 5 reasons that businesses don't succeed. And I thought this was really interesting. And I think that a lot of our customers might fall into this. So I wanted to share it. So number 1 was that you were mispriced. So it just didn't align with what people were looking for. And I think so many property management companies are starting to become mispriced. And I think we're doing some things that are taking us in the wrong direction. My personal opinion, but that was a big takeaway. Number 2 was overcompensation of employees. I don't necessarily see this happening a lot at property management companies, but it was the second thing, and I think something worth looking at in your business. Number 3 was over expansion. So as much as we say that we want all of our clients to grow, and we do, we want to make sure that they're not growing too big and they're not getting to the point that they can no longer serve these customers. So I know we preach a lot of, you need to figure out how to get more people in your business. But I also think it's important that we have standard operating procedures and we have systems in place to handle these things. So over expansion. That was number 3. Number 4 was focus. And this is the very first thing that we talked about, the constraint. We heard over and over again, make the main thing the main thing. And I do think that it's so easy for a business owner to get distracted and in on all the new technologies coming out and the different things they could implement in their business. but that key constraint is so important. And then number 5 was the avatar. And I see 90% of our clients falling down here because they don't have clarity around it. So demographics, geographics, psychographics, get more familiar with your client. And when I say more familiar with your client, I want you to get more familiar with them, not how they are in your world. We forget to take ourselves out of our shoes and put ourselves in their shoes. And I think we make business decisions based on what's best for us. And I think we need to get really clear about what our avatar needs. And that should be how we determine our key constraint.
Sounds great.
That was my hey bonus thing, because I felt like that was super valuable and something that I'm seeing a lot of property management companies head in weird directions as I work to coach them and as they come in.
Yeah, great share. All right, so I'll share my bonus. I'll prep you. We're gonna close. I want to hear from you what you want to make sure we change in 2025 based on this workshop. Because as we learned, if you learn new things but you don't change your behavior, you didn't learn anything, right? That was like a theme of the meeting, which Alex Hormozi says all the time. So I'll let you think about that for a second, but I want to know what we're going to change in 2025. I love that bonus. My bonus was I took away just that they were all about volume. Like when you think about acquisition.com and they tell the stories about how they've grown companies and what they do when they invest in your company, they create insane volume and they create insane urgency. They are not sitting around saying, this is a 6-month problem. They're like, this is a 6-hour problem. The work ethic and the volume that they applied to everything was pretty mind-blowing as we were there. Every time we live workshops, and by the way, spoiler alert, day 2 of the workshop, you get to sit in round tables and talk to their presidents, like their director of digital marketing, their director of outbound and sales manager. Like Jen and I went to dinner after day 1 and we said, hey, let's be prepared. We're about to ask people playing at a super high level how they would fix the problems we have in our business, right? And I was fanatical about that. And I was like, let's write all these questions down. Jen knows I was cutting off other people because I wanted my questions asked. And we got a lot of value out of doing that. But the volume, like the number one answer that we got, and I'm paraphrasing, is not even us, like everybody, like you're not doing enough. You say, hey, I want more leads. I want to do this. They're like, you're just not doing enough. I mean, their outbound sales team practices the first 30 to 45 minutes every day. Before they let anybody get on the phones, they practice every day, 5 days a week. And then they are making 100 outbound calls. If they're advertising, they're testing 50 new ads every week. Every week. They've got people on staff just to create 50 new variations of every ad. When they want to hire a new vendor like an ad agency, they literally schedule 15 meetings. They don't even, most of us would just be like, I've talked to 4 people, I'm exhausted. They will talk to 15 people before they make a decision. If it's a key hire, they'll literally hire and pay multiple people to the job before they make the decision. They just were absolutely outrageous with how extreme they're willing to go with their volume. And each time they made us an offer to work with them, to hire them, to invest in us, they told us there was a deadline. We needed to get back in touch with them that day or before we left town. That's what they did. So they knew we were in town. They knew Jen and I, it was a Wednesday, Thursday conference. They knew we were there Friday. They're like, will you come to our office on Friday? We'd love to meet you. We'd love to talk to you about your business. Like there was no passiveness in anything they did. I think that's why they're mowing down everyone in their path, because they just have urgent and violent amounts of volume in everything they do, which was just absolutely fantastic because it was done tastefully. It was done compellingly. It was just really cool to see. So that was just something that I absolutely thought was mind-blowing when I was in their presence. And so if you keep thinking you can't scale, or you keep thinking that I need to invest in something new, or I need to do something new, I can almost save you the $10,000 that Jen and I spent to go to this conference and be like, they're going to be like, well, what's working? And just how do you 100x that? That's what they're going to tell you, because that's what they do. And it really works, which is crazy. All right. So as my wrap, we had a lot of fun. It was great. They're amazing. Team is like, Alex and Hormozi, if you watch their YouTube stuff and you follow them, I want to tell you that the people underneath them are equally amazing, right? And I'm blown away that they're able to attract all these other great people. They're not doing everything themselves at all. They've built an amazing team, which is just awesome to see. All right, Jen, what are we going to change? How do we fix rent scale in 2025? What are you going to change?
Well, I know we've been gushing about this whole thing for quite a while, so I'll make this super quick. Get ready to talk a lot about LTV and CAC. That's what we're going to be focused on this year. I know you're going to put a huge focus on the testimonial piece and the sales side and the constraints. It's hard, but get ready to talk about those things.
All right. Appreciate you coming out to the event, missing holiday parties, things during December, Jen. Appreciate you being there. I think we both learned a lot. We thought it was worth it. Let's wrap it up there. I want to tell you about all the events that Jen and I will be at in the next 3 months, so you can come and say hi and ask more questions. But first, let's hear a quick word from one of our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Strategic PM, the magazine for property management entrepreneurs and executives. If you go online to strategicpm.com today, you're going to find an entire website full of content written about your industry and by your peers. And it's completely free to sign up. Just go ahead and click on the create a free account right in the upper right-hand corner. When you click on that, not only can you create a digital account, but you can actually add your mailing address and we will send you a free 1-year subscription of the print magazine, which will be showing up in your offices every single quarter. So if you take a look inside the magazine, what you're gonna see is that we are focused on growth. We've got 5 pillars of Strategic PM: vision, strategy, culture, marketing, and experience. You're gonna be seeing some great high-class content from some of the best thought leaders in the industry talking about the matters that matter the most to your business. So sign up for free today at strategicpm.com and look for the magazine in your office. All right, guys, that was a lot of fun. I know we went super long, but we're excited to talk to you guys at events. We're betting big on events this year. So let's go through the event calendar. First, next event we're going to January 17th. We are going to the Atlanta NARPM Chapters one-day conference. This is the second year they're doing this. I heard great things about last year. I wasn't there. And we're having the Atlanta Resolutions Chapter Expo. So this is something that will be great. Obviously, it is focused on the Atlanta NARPM chapter, but they are very open to guests from other NARPM regions, and I hear a lot of people come. Just after that, back in Vegas again. My goodness, I can't believe they're letting me come back to Vegas 30 days later. But several members of us are going to what we hear is one of the most exciting conferences every year, and that is the Property Management Systems Conference. It's in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's January 20th to 23rd. Jen and I will be speaking there. I'll be running a roundtable or a whatever they call it, where everybody's getting their questions asked. And basically, we will be there. We'll be having parties. We do have a little secret party from RentScale. We do have an awesome suite at Trump Tower, and we're bringing in a private chef. If you're going to go there, reach out, let us know. We'll tell you more about that later, but it's going to be awesome. Come back for a little rest, and then we're back at it in February. We're going to the state chapter NARPM meetings, which we're very excited about. Some of my favorites. So we're going to the North Carolina State NARPM Conference, February 26th to 27th. I believe it's in Raleigh this year, which I love. Any town it's in North Carolina, I'm very excited to be there. And then we've got the big one. We've got the NARPM Broker Owner in March. It's in Colorado Springs, Jen's home state. Although that's not where she's at. She's still hours away from that. But Colorado Springs is an amazing place in Colorado. We'll have the NARPM Broker Owner. We'll definitely see you there. Jen and I, again, will be speaking at that conference. And we would love to see you there. Come out, give us a high five, get a t-shirt, get a copy of the magazine, which I'm looking around. I don't have one on the desk. You just saw it, and we'd love to see you there. Well, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining us, joining in and learning about the latest tips and trends from the top residential property managers in North America. Please be sure to join us every time. We do this every other Thursday, so you don't miss your competitive advantage. Check out all the latest going on in property management and get details and show notes from today at strategicpm.com. That's strategicpm.com. Happy New Year's, folks. And that's what's happening this week in PM.